right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Welcome to Wilder Middle School. These are dynamic times, and I know that this has been a busy week, so I thank everyone for being here tonight and joining me at the first Virginia 7th District Constituent Forum. Well, my name is Crystal Doyle, and I'm a public school nurse and a member of a group of concerned citizens fighting to preserve and promote progressive values, regardless of party. We hope that this is the first of many forums across the 7th District that will focus on critical legislative issues. And tonight the focus is on healthcare and education, two hot topics and near and dear to my heart. I am a public school nurse, and I feel that education and healthcare go hand in hand because when we are educated, we have improved health, and when we have improved health, we are ready to learn. And when we have good health, we're so ready for everything. And so anyway, I feel particularly honored today to welcome you to a serious discussion about these two topics featuring amazing local experts in these fields. And I'm also incredibly grateful to our organizational sponsors this evening, Together We Will RVA and Indivisible Richmond. You may have heard of them. You may have heard even the president talking about them and Congressman Brat talking about them, but rather in an unfavorable light, suggesting that they are radicals and that they made up of professional paid activists. Well, I want to be here as living proof that this claim is a lie. I'm organized and I'm professional, but most of all, I'm motivated, and that's what should scare them. And I think that we have great capacity to scare them a lot. So in this post-truth political age, whatever this crazy time we're in is, in which to be called liberal or progressive means that we hold truth to be self-evident, I am so glad that we have this opportunity to represent ourselves and ask meaningful questions and seek the truth. Because it's with this truth that we will be armed and we will be ready to fight dangerous legislation and keep this country moving forward. So you'll note in your program that tonight you'll hear a few words from Alicia Comer-Wright of Together We Will and Kristen O'Neill of Indivisible Richmond. They'll share their experiences in grassroots organizing and participation, and then our esteemed moderator, Dr. Brooke Newman, will introduce our panel and facilitate your questions. We'll first focus on education and then shift gears to healthcare. We could have entire forums, 10 entire forums on each of these topics, but they're so incredibly important right now. We're going to address them both as meaningfully as possible tonight. We encourage you to write down your questions as you go. We'll have opportunities for you to ask questions and also submit them for future forums, because like I said, we want to keep doing this across the entire 7th District. Maureen Haynes will close the evening with some inspiring words, I'm sure. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome our speakers tonight from Together We Will and Indivisible.
Hi, good evening. And thank you. I am Alicia Comer-Wright, and I'll just give you a little bit of background about me personally. I am a former special educator with Henrico County Public Schools for about 12 years. I left teaching to actually homeschool my own children, so now I am a homeschooler, which is a completely flip for me. But I also work as an advocate, partnering with parents on how to get or make sure that the accommodations and the rights that children with special needs deserve and are entitled to are able to get them through their local schools. So I'm able to use that expertise of having 12 years in the school system to now help parents on the other side, and I really enjoy that. So I'm here to speak a little bit about an organization that came about as a result of the 2016 presidential election, like many other grassroots organizations that have formed. And the organization I'm speaking of is Together We Will RVA. This organization is a community-based action group, and our mission is to connect members with local philanthropic and political organizations for community-based action and to foster grassroots efforts for progressive change. That's a mouthful, but here's what we do. We have about 13,000 members. Predominantly we meet online, and we also have a Facebook page, but we also have a website that we publish a lot of information with. And we use that group to connect people who are looking to make changes in their communities, and also people who want to challenge some of the policies that are coming out from our new administration. And we encourage them, instead of reinventing the wheel, but to partner up with local organizations who are already leading these efforts. And we found that that's been very powerful. That it's not necessarily our job to completely reinvent and recreate this work, but to find organizations that are led by people in these communities and who've been doing this work and have an actual stakeholder interest in their communities already, and to partner that way. We're trying to harness all of this new energy, and we've also broken out into lots of local subgroups and issue-based subgroups, just depending on where your passion areas are. We are really focused on trying to point you in the direction so that you can connect with others to focus on that. Let's see. Our outreach also includes outreach to legislatures on both the local, state, and national levels to help get progressive candidates elected into office. We also really value and recognize the power of collective voices and activism. We understand that in order for us to make the type of changes that we'd like to see, that we've got to make sure that voices that have been historically not necessarily heard are included in this effort. And we do this a number of ways. One way that we do this is by having something that we call a monthly spotlight. We try to make our monthly spotlight be an educational piece that has an intersectional twist to it. So it's not necessarily focusing on one specific group, but how these issues affect multiple groups, but emphasizing the groups that are most targeted by whatever policies we're discussing. So for February, we decided to focus on mass incarceration, and the school to prison pipeline. And if you aren't aware, Virginia is actually #1 in the nation, which blew my mind, for the school to prison pipeline. #1 in the nation, here in Virginia. So when I hear my sister, who has children in Henrico County schools, on another side of the county, talk about the number of what she sees as unfair disciplinary actions for certain populations of students, particularly students with disabilities, students of color, and students who are maybe immigrants, those numbers, those students are several times more likely to be expelled for the exact same behaviors as a non-disabled child, a non-child of color, and an American-born student. And so we try to use our monthly spotlights to highlight these issues, but also highlight groups, local groups that are led by people that are doing this work, and we try to contribute to them either fundraising, well, not either, with a fundraiser, because we are just making the decision that if we're going to support these groups, we need to support them financially. Through actual volunteer hours, we need to also show up to show them that we are interested in supporting them, and also by making sure that we talk about the legislative policies that impact those groups. So that's just one example, and if you're interested in some of the work we're doing, please feel free to go to our website, Together We Will RVA, or I'm sure there's a contact information somewhere you can just grab me. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kirsten O'Neill, and I'm with Indivisible Richmond. So how many of you guys are a part of Indivisible Richmond? Nice. Okay, so I won't go into too much detail on what we are since about 90% of you just raised your hand. But I will just kind of read out our mission statement, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to misstate it. And it's, we the citizens of the greater Richmond area will encourage broad and persistent civic engagement in local, state, and national government to secure the rights of all people. So we made a conscious decision to be a nonpartisan organization. So, because we want to focus on the issues. So the main goal of why a lot of you are here tonight is, it's very community driven, and we want to help people accomplish the goals that they want. So one of the things that we have, since we're talking about healthcare, is actually this Saturday. It's the March to Save the ACA, and it's at 3 to 5 at the Capitol, so I encourage you all to kind of come. We have the event posted on our Facebook page. Please feel free to join us. We've been growing every single day. We have over, I think it's like 1,700 members right now, and we're about like 3 weeks old. So yeah, and since we are community driven, we're actually breaking up into smaller groups that are focused on the area. So like Indivisible like Northside, Indivisible West End, things like that. So that way you can actually get together in a room with a smaller group of people, talk about things that are very important to you, and try and figure out what ways would best accomplish your goals. Is it going to a town hall for Dave Bratt, or is it talking to your state senator? Is it trying to get a local education program to help people understand what's fake news and what's not? So that's kind of our goal. It's more community driven. This event right here is a good example of it. We have a lot of cross members between Indivisible Richmond, TWW, all the other local chapters. So we all do work together. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Most of you guys are in the group, so thank you.
So thank you all for coming. This is such a great turnout. It's so important to have an audience for this discussion and people willing to contribute and ask questions. So tonight we'll be starting with our education panelists, and I'm going to introduce them and then let them each talk for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to open it up with a question that's on a number of people's minds, and then after that open it up to all of you to discuss. After we've finished talking about education, of course you can never really finish talking about education, but after we are forced to stop talking, we will then shift to our panelists on healthcare. So first we have Harold Bud Cawthorn, who is a retired superintendent of Goochland County Public Schools and also a former specialist at the Virginia Department of Education. Throughout his very long career in the Tidewater and Central Virginia public school system, he has held many roles. He has worked as a classroom teacher, as a principal, as a technology manager, as a budgetary supervisor, and as a director of information services. So he is our inside man into the public school system. Secondly, we have Dr. Kimberly Robinson, who is a professor of law at the University of Richmond School of Law and a national specialist in education equity, equal educational opportunity, civil rights and gender equity, and the federal role in education. She's the author of numerous articles and a co-edited book called The Enduring Legacy of Rodriguez, Creating New Pathways to Equal Education Opportunity, which is published by Harvard Education Press in 2015. She was also, in 2016, awarded the Stephen S. Goldberg Award for Distinguished Scholarship in Education Law. Our third panelist is Jesse Seneschal, who is an assistant professor of Foundations of Education at the VCU School of Education. He is also interim director for research and evaluation for the School of Education-affiliated Metropolitan Educational Research Consortium. I challenge you to Google that. He specializes in community perspectives on the shifting meaning of public education, with a particular focus on the development of charter schools. He also has 14 years of classroom experience as a high school English teacher, and also as a curriculum coordinator in both Richmond and Chicago City schools. So I'd like to let them all introduce themselves now. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. How many of you went to public schools? All right. Looks like I'm in good company. I want you to know that I've got to watch you, Maureen, so I don't run off too much. I want you to know that I don't have any bias toward private education, religious education, charter schools, at least those charter schools that are under the auspices of the school board. My own daughter is an administrator for a private school. My grandkids go to private school here in the Richmond area, and is very well run and very well respected. I don't have any problem with that. What I have a problem with is tax dollars going to support private education. I have not been politically active until about the first part of January. I got my blood pressure up, and then I had to do something. I said, I've worked my whole life in public education. I can't just sit around and do nothing or say nothing and just let things happen. I have to do whatever small part I can do. And so I'm not paid, Speech free. Maybe I should go to Arizona and speak for money. The thing that bothered me the most, I pulled this letter to Congress of the United States and to a Committee of Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, and it's signed, the principal's signature on here is Dave Bratz. The second signature on here, I don't know if you recognize this name, is Todd Rokita. Todd Rokita had a bill last term, which I'm sure he'll reintroduce, to block grant free and reduced lunches in schools. And so if you Googled all of these names on here, you could probably find a really terrific group of folks who sponsored this bill. There is an education reform bill in Congress. If you don't know about it, it's H.R. 610, and it is a $20 billion bill to go to vouchers for public schools. Now, Mr. Bratz says that, Congressman Bratz says, you don't have to worry about that in the 7th District because we've got all good schools here in the county, and I've sent my kids to these schools and blah, 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 blah. I'm here to tell you that all of these programs, all I have to do is quote the now Secretary of Education, whose mission, she says, in education reform is to advance God's purpose. Okay? Now, Mr. Bratt has a kind of convoluted economic theory, which somehow talks about Judeo-Christian, influence in the market and how it's been responsible for capitalism, good growth of capitalism, and we should all go to that. But I'm going to tell you that, I'm an elder in the Presbyterian Church, and my understanding of Jesus was that Jesus was a social democrat who drove the capitalists out of the temple for changing money. So I'm not sure that I would buy that argument. He has received $15,000 and more from the DeVos family in contributions. He says a monopoly provides the worst outcomes. Well, let's look at the study of vouchers and what vouchers are unregulated vouchers, unregulated charter schools. Is there any clear research that they make any difference at all?
No.
None.
Negative.
None. But we're going to put $20 billion toward it. I say, take $20 billion if you want a great marketplace experience, give it to salaries of public school teachers and see if that makes a difference. Now, one of the big things that bothers me about all of these approaches, whether it be virtual schools, tax incentives, unregulated charter schools, is that no matter where the money goes with the child, it still drains average daily membership from the school. Okay? That's how you get funded. You take a county like Goochland, it's long and thin, okay? You got to run a bus sometimes from the central part of Goochland all the way out to the Bird District, which is way out west. You know, you got to run that bus probably to very similar bus stops whether you have 20 or you have 10 kids. You've got to run a lunch program. So there are economies of scales that will be hurt in any voucher program, and I'm here to tell you that the most disadvantaged kids are not going to know about, their parents are not going to know about these programs, and they're probably not going to get accepted for a variety of reasons. You know, it may be because of disabilities, it may be because of some discipline problems they've had in the school. The private schools are going to be very selective in that. So who's going to go? People who already have, you know, chicken in the pot.